among some members of Congress. NBC's senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez has the latest. Gabe, good morning.
Chanel, good morning. The president and his team are now focused on selling this war. Overnight, the president sending a letter to Congress saying it's not possible at this time to know the full scope and duration of military operations that may be necessary. But Democrats are pushing back. As the war in Iran escalates, President Trump says the U.S. is ahead of schedule.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
The administration said over the weekend that Iran was threatening U.S. forces. Now, Secretary of State Marco Rubio explaining it this way.
We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces.
Saying the U.S. had to move fast to avoid higher casualties.
The imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. We went proactively in a defensive way.
Democrats aren't buying it.
If we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory.
Overnight, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking on Fox News.
You're not going to have an endless war. This terror regime in Iran is the weakest point that has been here.
Echoing Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who earlier insisted the war wouldn't be forever.
This is not Iraq. This is not endless.
But there has been mixed messaging.
The objective was not regime change. The objective was to take out those missiles.
On Saturday, the president said this to the Iranian people, suggesting regime change.
When we are finished, take over your government. It will be yours to take.
Now he's stressing 4 objectives for the U.S. mission: destroying Iran's missile capabilities, annihilating their navy, preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, and ensuring they can no longer fund proxy terror groups outside the country.
This was our last best chance to strike.
Now, one question for a lot of people is whether this conflict could involve American troops on the ground. Yesterday, the president and the defense secretary would not rule out boots on the ground, but President Trump is focusing on the military airstrikes for now, saying he wants to hit Iran where it hurts. Chanel.
All right, Gabe, thanks.
All right, let's get some perspective now on the war and where this conflict could be headed next. Retired Colonel Steve Warren is an NBC military analyst, former Pentagon spokesman. Colonel, good morning to you. Thanks for being here with us this morning. First of all, give us a sense of where the Iranian military was before we started our strikes 4 days ago, and where you suspect they are right now.
So the Iranian military has a great reputation as being a strong and powerful military in the Middle East. But what I'll tell you, what many may have forgotten, since the 12-day war that Israel launched against the Iranians, they have been steadily being degraded.
Okay.
Of course, the United States took part in that war a little bit, but particularly the Israelis have been slowly and steadily degrading them. They have a strong ground force. They have an advanced intermediate range missile force. But a lot of the things in between have really been degraded.
The president outlined, we just talked about this, a timeline of 4 to 5 weeks and didn't rule out boots on the ground. How likely are either of those, and how do we know when those objectives are reached?
I think of boots on the ground in 2 ways. A large invasion force, which is what would be required to invade and take over Iran. I do not believe that will happen. But remember, boots on the ground is a slang term, not a military phrase. So the other way to think about it is special operations forces, which I believe we will probably see at some point. So Americans in Iran, yes. Large combat forces with tanks and artillery, I believe no.
Let's talk about this next wave. Secretary of State Rubio yesterday alluded to the next wave being perhaps far more significant than what we've seen over the last few days. What could that look like, Colonel?
Well, the Pentagon has laid out some very specific military objectives, including sinking the Navy, destroying their intermediate range ballistic missile range capabilities, and some nuclear things. I think this next wave, what we should keep an eye on is for an opportunity for the American military to now officially sink the Iranian Navy, or to make a real hard push against their nuclear capabilities.
Because we know where their ships are, pretty much.
Well, the ships are the best, right? Because you can count them. We know how many they have. We know where they are, and one single focused assault on the naval capabilities could be decisive.
All right, retired Colonel Steve Warren. Welcome to the team, by the way, Colonel. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right, meantime, the war is already sending oil prices skyrocketing. Iran's military says it has shut down one of the world's busiest shipping channels, and we're going to feel it here at home. NBC News senior business correspondent Christine Romans is here with that part of the story. Good morning. Let's dig in here. Can we expect gas prices to keep rising?
Yeah, they've already happened here. When you look at AAA gas prices, $3.10 a gallon, that's the national average. That's up a lot from last week, and it's really been a dramatic and quick move. One analyst telling us this morning you could see $3.20 a gallon by the end of the week. Crude oil up, almost 14% since this crisis began. That's where this all begins. The idea that there's some sort of a global shock to energy production and energy transit through that Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian state media saying that Iran will light on fire any ship that tries to go through there. So when I look at marine traffic, I can see it's a big parking lot on both sides of the Strait of Hormuz as international shippers try to figure out just how much further this conflict will go, and that's what's sending up energy prices. And we're expecting a really kind of a tough day for stocks this morning.
And 20% of oil goes through that strait. The administration, have they talked about a plan to address the rising cost of gas in this country as a result?
Yeah, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, suggested in a stakeout yesterday there'd be an announcement today from the Energy Secretary and the Treasury Secretary of a program to address what they had anticipated, which is that energy prices would rise because of these attacks in Iran. What's interesting, it was a week ago today that the president was giving the State of the Union address, and he was heralding falling energy prices as something that was good, a good byproduct of his administration. You now have oil prices that have completely reversed. All of the progress under the Trump administration are now higher. They're back at January 2025 levels for oil prices. We have to see what happens in the Strait of Hormuz. The last 12 hours have been dangerous in the region, quite frankly, and there's been an escalation from the Iranians in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, and so you've got these big oil and energy producers shutting down operations. All of that will drive energy prices higher, and that will translate into higher gas prices at the pump here.
All right, Christine, thank you.
Well, this morning we are getting our first look at close to 9 hours of footage from the closed-door depositions of Bill and Hillary Clinton. They each testified before members of Congress as part of the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. NBC's Ryan Nobles has been pouring through that video. He's got some noteworthy moments to look at this morning. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, Greg, good morning. And the two Clintons each took questions for more than 4.5 hours. And despite being pressed by both Republicans and Democrats, they forcefully denied any knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes. Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton taking tough questions about their relationships and interaction with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The former president was making it clear he knew nothing of the late sex offender's crimes.
Have you ever engaged in sexual activity with a person introduced to you by Jeffrey Epstein?
No. For hours, forced to explain the many times he appeared in the Epstein files, including this photo of him in a hot tub with a woman.
I don't know who that is.
Did you engage in any sexual activity with this person?
And while critical of the committee calling for his wife to be deposed, acknowledging they were right to call on him.
I do think you should be talking to me. I think you should have called me. I did take those plane trips with him, and you have a right to ask those questions.
Clinton also testifying he only ever had one conversation with President Trump about Epstein.
The president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein either.
Meanwhile, the former Secretary of State almost left her deposition after Congresswoman Lauren Boebert shared a photo of her with a conservative influencer.
I'm done with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home.
She forcefully denied any relationship with Epstein, despite being asked about it over and over.
I am so tired of answering that question. If you have one scintilla of evidence to the contrary, put it forward.
And while the former president said he had no reason to believe that Trump did anything improper related to Epstein, he also said that Trump told him he had ended his relationship over a bad land deal, which contradicts Trump's claim that he kicked Epstein out of his Mar-a-Lago club over how he treated women. Craig?
Ryan Nobles from Washington for us there. Ryan, thank you.
All right, let's say good morning to Al now. He's here with the first check of the weather. Good morning.
Good morning, guys, and good morning to you. And hopefully, winter's last gasp. We'll see. Here in the Northeast, at least, we've got this area of rain and frozen precip pushing in 34 million of us from Boston to Beckley, West Virginia, with the winter storm warnings there for the mountains. We're going to watch this push through interior sections of the Northeast and New England, see some icy travel, but rain and melting snow from Boston to Philadelphia as temperatures actually do warm up. You will see, though, anywhere from 1/100th of an inch to 1/10th of an inch of ice stretching from Bradford, PA down to Hagerstown. Boston could see some icing to the west, and we're looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 inches of snow making its way into interior sections of New England. Light snow there, record highs down through Texas, very mild out west, and a few showers in the northern Rockies. We're going to get to your local forecast coming